Hey, I'm Mia Hemstad. I'm a wife, I'm a mom of 2 kids, and I'm a trauma-informed self-care coach. I also live with diagnosed PTSD and depression. I started sharing my mental wellness journey online in 2017 when I was diagnosed with postpartum depression and anxiety. And since then, I've heard from hundreds of women who all struggle with the same thing, putting ourselves last. This is a struggle that's keeping so many women burned out and unhappy, through no fault of our own, by the way. I've been working on my own healing as an abuse survivor since 2013. But when I became a mom, I really started to do the inner work of figuring out why I was putting myself last and how to start prioritizing myself for the first time in my life. This podcast is about sharing all of those lessons with you. So if you're interested in hearing honest stories, life advice, and inspiration that encourages you to make your health, happiness, and well-being a priority, then definitely stick around. Welcome to your No Longer Last journey. Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. I'm so grateful that you are joining me today for this episode that has been highly requested. And I apologize for the bad word in it, but it's the only way that I could really express myself. But today's topic is how to show up for your day when you feel like shit. And I would love to have it have a rosier title, but to be honest with you, a lot of the advice I give obviously is based on my lived experience, and ever since I became a mom, not feeling the greatest has been kind of a through line for me. Not because of, motherhood is very demanding, but also because of a lot of the trauma that kind of came up for me when I entered motherhood. So it was like I was dealing with the transition into motherhood on top of the fact that I fell into depression and anxiety, postpartum depression and anxiety, on top of the fact that I was diagnosed with PTSD because of things I went through in my childhood. So it was just layer upon layer upon layer. And I still live with PTSD. And one of the ways that manifests for me is through chronic nightmares. And so oftentimes I will go through months at a time where I feel like I didn't sleep at all. And so I have gone through many a moon of feeling like hot garbage. And over the years, I have had to learn how to still pay my bills, how to still show up for my children, how to still raise them, how to still keep them alive, how to keep myself going. And that's the reality of life. And that's the reality of motherhood. We don't get to take a sick day. We don't get to opt out. We don't get to be like, you know what, I'm just not feeling it today. And that's one of the things that can be brutal about motherhood. It can be really, really hard. And I just remember so many days where my eyes were just wanting to close, but I had a toddler who was trying to break into every single cupboard, and I had a newborn who was constantly demanding that I carry her. So this is for you if you feel like you are in the trenches of motherhood, and this is for you if you live with a mental illness that causes you to feel chronically fatigued, chronically in pain, chronically exhausted, because I have been all of those things. I still deal with the fatigue issue because of PTSD, and I'm going to go into that in a minute. But I really, I'm excited to share these tools and tips with you, because I know that if I had this in my ear 6 years ago when I was really in the thick of it, and throughout the last couple of years, it would have really helped. So I'm really excited to pass this on over to you today. But before we dive into all of that, I wanted to share some very exciting news. I have been hinting over on Instagram and chatting about a new offer that I'm offering to the community, which is a weekly membership. If you don't know me super well, I have been journaling since I was 8 years old, and pen to paper is a way that I have always made sense of the world and processed what I'm going through. I'm a naturally self-reflective person, and I'm just excited to open that up for all of you. I basically am taking the very popular journal prompts that I use in all of my programs and workshops that include the 4B self-care framework. So if you haven't gotten that, that's a free resource. But essentially, this is a weekly membership where we meet every Sunday for 1 hour, and we do live journaling, and I offer coaching and accountability, and there's a live chat so you can ask me questions and connect with other people in the membership. And the beautiful thing about this is we have 3 specific journal prompts that are designed to help you reflect on how you're doing, what you need, and what self-care you need. So we ask, how am I doing mentally, emotionally, and physically? I have a whole podcast episode on that and why that's important to start with. And then you walk yourself through the 4B self-care framework to figure out what type of self-care that you need. And then we walk through the 3D boundary setting framework. What can I decrease? What can I delete? What can I delegate? So that you can make space for your self-care, because it's way too hard to try to cram self-care into an already crammed schedule. So the power of this, and I've been doing this with clients in other settings and in other offerings, is when you sit down and you take time every week to slow down, to stop, to take a break from like the grind of life, to reflect on how you're really doing, to ask yourself what you need, and to set intentions in a group setting where you have somebody you're telling, hey, by next week, Mia, I want to have made an appointment with my therapist. Hey, by next week, I want to have emailed, this group that I'm a part of and tell them I just don't have the space in my life for this commitment right now. By next week, I want to make sure that I reached out to my friend and set up a coffee date with her because I'm lonely and I'm tired of going through life without any connection. When you have someone that you're telling that to, that someone being me and the community, it helps you hold yourself accountable and it helps you follow through on your intentions. And I have seen this happen in real time with my clients in my other program, the No Longer Last Journey. I need to figure out how to name my stuff because it's very hard with like trademark and copyright things. This, what I'm offering right now, used to be called the Weekly Wellness Check-In. But anyway, we're just going to call it the Weekly Check-In for short. But anyway, I have seen how when people take time to set these intentions, number one, they notice the flags of burnout before it's too late. Number two, they practice self-care way more consistently. And number three, they are more likely to set boundaries in their life so that they're not realizing that they've overcommitted before it's too late. So that's the beauty and the power of this practice. And it only takes an hour a week. It could even take less time depending on how much coaching and support you would like. In my other program, we only take 20 minutes to do these journal prompts. So it's really great. I'll leave a link in the description because I actually put the journal prompts over on my my webpage. You can go and you can look through the offer. If you can't make the live time, you are emailed the session replays, so you can do it on your own time. So that's new and it's exciting, and it's only $20 a month. And it was really important to me to try to figure out how to offer something to this community that was at a lower price point, because I know what it's like to be on a really tight budget. And I feel like just because you're on a tight budget, you shouldn't be excluded from support like this. So I'm really grateful to be offering this and to have space in my life to be able to offer this every single Sunday. So it's only $20 a month for now. That's the early bird price. And then the price does go up slightly after March 31st. So I would love it if you are considering joining to go check it out. Don't procrastinate. See if it's for you. And if it is, join before the 31st. And our first session is actually on March 24th, but that's tomorrow. So this podcast episode will probably go out after that. But yeah, I hope that you check it out. And I also wanted to share this beautiful message I got on Instagram from somebody named Shelby. She said, if you're listening, thank you, Shelby. This truly made my day. She's talking about the 4B framework, which is my self-care framework, my basic, boring, brilliant, and bougie self-care. And she said, I just found your podcast a little bit ago, and I just wanted to say thank you. Your 4B framework is a game changer. I had 2 babies back to back and have been feeling so stretched thin and feeling that I don't have an identity anymore outside of my kids. You've already helped me identify some self-care things I am needing. I made a dentist appointment for myself. I have been attempting to shower every day without feeling guilty, and made plans to go on a hike for the first time in 3 years. I even am buying myself a new hiking backpack that I've been wanting as my bougie intention. I seriously can't thank you enough for the impact you have made in just a few short weeks. I am actually enjoying my babies instead of feeling burdened by them. And I'm not even kidding you when I read this over my morning coffee one Saturday. I literally started crying because I know exactly what she means when she says, I am actually enjoying my babies instead of feeling burdened by them. And that's the thing that can happen in motherhood when we're constantly, and when I say putting yourself last, I say that a lot. Like, let's stop putting ourselves last. It's not in like a blaming way, because it's not like motherhood in Western society is set up for us to easily make ourselves a priority. Everything is very much set up to make ourselves last. So it's not like you are actively putting yourself last because you don't care about yourself. I don't think the way things are set up to make it something that it's easy to choose. I actually feel like I have to be ruthless and I have to fight really hard to prioritize myself. Less now than before, but I just want to validate that if this work is hard for you, that it is not a you problem, that it is a society problem. And one of the things that is so devastating about this problem is that it causes us to look at these babies that we've carried in our bodies, that we've birthed, maybe that you've gone through struggles to adopt, maybe whatever it is, whatever made you a mom. It was a lot of work and it was a lot of sacrifice, and you've given yourself to someone else to be there and have a relationship like nothing else with someone else in this life. And then the fact that then that they feel like a burden to you, we don't talk enough about the fact that that makes moms feel even more guilty. It's like, here I gave birth to you and now I feel like you've ruined my life. And that's the thing that happens when we don't have a moment to do anything else. I mean, she literally said, I'm trying to shower every day without feeling guilty. I know exactly what that feels like. So the 4B framework, if you've been listening to my podcast for a while, came from a season of my life where I was extremely burned out by motherhood and extremely burned out by caregiving for my brother. And I was really struggling, and it was an effort that I was trying to make, a conscious effort after a very dark episode where I had to call the National Suicide Lifeline. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. I need to find a way to regularly consider myself. And that's where this weekly practice was born. It used to be called Health Gratitude Goals. Those were my 3 sections. And then it developed into the 4B framework. And now it has these 3 components of how am I doing, what self-care do I need, and what boundaries do I need to make space for self-care. So it's been years in the making, and I'm really excited to be offering a space where we can take the results that you're hearing from Shelby's story. And, you know, if you're somebody who kind of struggles to self-initiate and to follow through, it's just makes it so much easier when you can do it in community. So that's the intention behind that. Well, thanks for listening to that with me. It honestly feels very cool because I didn't think I would be doing the work that I'm doing now. It's weird to look back and to think about how this framework is touching people across the world. But so thanks for sitting with me through the nostalgia. So how do we show up for our days when we feel like hot garbage? Well, I can speak to this very presently because I am in a season, well, I feel like I'm finally coming out of it, hence why I'm filming this podcast episode, where in January, I actually stopped doing one of the things that was really helping me sleep well. And I didn't realize how much it was helping me until I stopped doing it. I was going to acupuncture every other week to help me manage my stress. And I had been sleeping really well for 3 months straight. And that's the longest stretch that I've ever slept decently well in years. And I stopped going to acupuncture, number 1, because I thought that I was doing better and didn't need it anymore. I still would have did it, but number 2, my husband was laid off from his job, which I've mentioned on the podcast a couple episodes ago. And so basically my husband was laid off from his job, and we were like, wow, we really need to cut as much expenses as possible because now we're out all of this other income. So I was like, you know what, we can cut acupuncture. I've been sleeping great for the last 3 months, and that was a really bad idea. And it created an immensely horrible ripple effect where I was waking up feeling like I had pulled an all-nighter. I was extremely fatigued. I had no appetite. I was struggling to exercise, to take a shower, to brush my teeth. My anxiety started spiraling. Going to work every day took everything in me. And in addition to coaching and doing self-care coaching, I am a full-time senior communications manager at a nonprofit called the Maternal Mental Health Leadership Alliance. And so, you know, I have a pretty senior role in this organization. I have a lot of responsibilities, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not sleeping well. How am I going to show up for all of this work? And so it just made my anxiety worse, which made my sleep worse, which made everything else worse, right? So it's this vicious cycle that I found myself in starting in January. It got worse in February. And so, you know, as a means of survival, I was putting everything I had into my job because I need to make sure that I deliver on the thing that pays my bills and, that that I promised to do. So it was a really stressful time, and I had to reach back into all of these tools and tips that I'm about to share with you in order to make it through that season. I have since restarted acupuncture 2 months ago, thankfully, and not 2 months ago, sorry, 2 weeks ago, and I am already starting to feel better. So that's good. So all of these tips and advice I'm going to share with you are feeling very, very fresh. And I hope that they are going to support you in the way that they support me. So the first thing that I recommend if you regularly wake up feeling like hot garbage is do not think of everything you need to do. Focus on one micro step at a time. This is so important. Focus on one micro step at a time. Those micro steps will build momentum throughout your day. It will help you get through the day without spiraling out of control. So oftentimes when I'm anxious or when I wake up feeling not rested, the first thing my brain does is start to think about every single thing I need to do, and it starts to feel like a huge weight. And my brain starts to spiral, and I start to feel like physically burdened and paralyzed by everything I need to do. And it makes me not want to move. Like literally, it makes me want to stay in my bed, scroll on my phone, disassociate, and not think about everything I have to do. So whenever my brain starts to enter into that pattern, I take a breath and I go micro steps, micro steps, micro steps. And I think about the very next step. And that literally is like, get out of bed, go pee, drink water, eat breakfast, get kids dressed for school, drink coffee, preferably outside. Like even going outside on my roof, like feels overwhelming, but I'm just like, get your jacket on, go up the stairs, drink your coffee outside in the sunlight, because then that can help me feel a little bit more awake. So literally when you wake up and you start feeling your brain spiral, micro steps, micro steps, micro steps. The second tip is focus on building up your capacity by meeting those basic needs. Whenever I talk to clients and they're like, Mia, I feel so burned out, I don't know where to start with self-care, I always recommend focus on basic self-care first. Basic self-care has 5 components: sleep, eating well, hydration, hygiene, and movement. Sleep, eating well, hydration, hygiene, and movement. If I'm not sleeping well, I am going to be focusing super hard on the other 4 things. So we already talked about hydration. I got my water in, but I'm going to move my body. I'm going to turn on, my favorite is Yoga with Cassandra. I do 10 minutes. She has like hundreds of 10-minute yoga sequences, and they're very gentle, especially if you look up her ones that are specifically for gentle movement. And I'll roll out my mat and I'll do 10 minutes of yoga. And then I will force myself to get in the shower, even if it's a super fast shower, but that water helps wake me up. And then I get dressed for work, because if I stay in pajamas or sweatpants, it makes me even more tired. So I put on a button-down shirt and some real pants. And then I fill my water bottle, and I keep my water bottle next to me while I work to keep me hydrated throughout the day. I'm not a scientist and I don't have the study handy, but I know that if you just do a quick Google search, you'll find many studies that show how important staying hydrated is for optimal brain function. And if you are not sleeping well, you need to be doing all the other things. That's my opinion. That's my suggestion. And that's what works for me. But yeah, I find it interesting how when we don't sleep well, it's almost like all of our other good habits go out the door. But what I want you to remember, that's when you need to lean on everything else even more, because you didn't sleep well. And if you have to show up for work and you have to show up for your kids and you got to get them to school, like drink your water, move your body, get some sunlight exposure, take a shower, whatever you can do to meet your needs. It helps to build up your capacity, right? I like to say that self-care does not solve your problems, but it strengthens you. It increases your capacity to handle life's challenges from a place of strength instead of depletion. So focus on building up your capacity by meeting those basic needs. Number 3 is make a to-do list where the tasks are time-bound so that you don't put too much on your plate. This is something that I talk about a lot, and there was a Yale study that evaluated a lot of different productivity tools and found that when you identify your top 3 priorities and actually make them time-bound, like, okay, I have 3 things I need to do. The first item is going to take 2 hours. The second item is going to take 30 minutes. And the third item is going to take 1 hour. And you actually plug that in. So you're going to do the first task from 10 to noon. You're going to take an hour-long lunch break. The second task from 1 to 1:30. And then you're going to take a 10-minute break. And then the third task from 1:45 to 2:45. When you make your tasks time-bound, it prevents you from from overfilling your checklist. When you are tired, your brain naturally struggles to prioritize and plan. Like those are the two things that go out the window when our prefrontal cortex is not fully online due to sleep deprivation. And so the first thing that I recommend is not overwhelming that brain by making you have to do a lot of work prioritizing and planning. So once you have all of your tasks maybe on a list, you do need to brain dump and figure out what's most important, and you highlight those 3 things. I actually create then another list so I don't have to see the brain dump list that's filled with tasks and overwhelms me. And I only take the 3 things that are most important and I put them on a different piece of paper. And once I've isolated those things, I actually put timestamps. I'm like, okay, it's 10 o'clock right now. I'm going to work on this from 10 to noon. I'm going to take a lunch break, and I actually make sure I take that lunch break because that helps revive some of that energy. And then I make the next thing time bound and the next thing time bound. This keeps me from overfilling my schedule and from setting unrealistic expectations. There's nothing worse than having a list that's 15 tasks long. You know you're not going to get to all of it, but you're going to try your hardest. You're literally going to go through your whole day making your neck tense, your back tense, your butt tense. You're going to be so stressed and exhausted because you're trying to accomplish an unrealistic amount of tasks. So set yourself up for a peaceful and calm work day. Anxiety only depletes our energy more, right? So you want to have the most ease-filled work day you possibly can have. Make it as ease-filled as possible. Make it as enjoyable as possible to help you not deplete your energy further. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, I'm going to share 3 more tips. Have you ever gotten a little time to take care of yourself and then you're instantly overwhelmed with what the heck you should do first? Yeah, I used to feel that way too. I call that self-care overwhelm, which leads to decision fatigue and results in you not taking care of yourself in the way that you really need to feel nourished and filled up. This used to be a constant problem for me back when I had my second baby, and that's when I created the 4B self-care framework to help my exhausted mom brain figure out what I needed to do to take care of myself with the small pockets of time and energy that I had. In this framework, there are 4 types of self-care: basic, boring, brilliant, and bougie. In my new mini course, I teach you about these 4 types of self-care. I show you how to prioritize, and I give you a printable to plan out your self-care over a 30-day period to help you go on your own journey of self-discovery to figure out what you really need to feel healthy, happy, and taken care of. You can get this mini course completely for free on my website at miahemstad.com/course. I'll have it linked in the show notes as well. All right, welcome back. So let's dive right back in. My 4th tip is when you take breaks, which I hope that you take many, and I'm talking short bursts of breaks. Like I know we all have a lot to do. I have a lot to do during my day job as well. But I actually use the Pomodoro method. I do 15 minutes on, 10 minutes off. And this really helps me. I know some people might think, oh, how do you get anything done if you take a break every 50 minutes? I actually get more done when I do that. When I try to just power through, it actually exhausts me more. My focus starts to deplete. It doesn't work for me. And some people actually do 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off. Some people do 90 minutes on and I think 10 minutes off. And studies have actually shown that 90 minutes is the maximum that we can truly have, peak focus. After that, it's just diminishing returns. So I work 50 on, 10 off. I've experimented with different Pomodoro times, and that's the time that works for me. And I use a timer called Flow. I think it's an Apple app. I don't know if that's also PC, but there's a lot of Pomodoro timers out there. Flow is what I use, and it's free, and it's like an extension on my computer, and it really helps me. Because whenever I feel like I just can't go 1 more minute, I just look at that timer and I'm like, oh, look, there's only 15 minutes left. I can do 15 more minutes, and I'm able to complete my tasks that way. And then when I have my 10-minute breaks, I either try to lay down and have a tech-free break. As much as possible, do not scroll on social media. I know when we have these breaks, we want dopamine, we want something interesting, we want novelty, but try to give that to yourself through any other means, because that social media break, quote unquote break, is only going to make you feel more depleted and more distracted. And this is something that I'm actively trying to work on. I have a social media addiction just like most of us do, and it is really hard for me to not pick up that phone. So I try to keep it out of sight, out of mind. So what I do when I have that 10-minute break is I take the recycling out. I walk down the hill and I take out the recycling, just get a little bit of fresh air, or I unload the dishes, or I hang up a load of laundry, or I honestly just do a little stretch my arms, like stretch my back, stretch my neck, do a little neck roll. Like there's so many little breaks and little things that we can do to help us feel energized and give us some dopamine in a healthy way. Another thing I love to do is a dance party. I love playing music right now. I'm loving listening to Ice Spice and Nicki Minaj's new album and Megan Thee Stallion. And if you're shocked by this, hopefully not, but I love that kind of music. And I mean, I love a lot of kinds of music, but any kind of music that's like high energy, you know, badass girl kind of energy, like give me all of that. And of course, Beyonce, obviously Beyonce. And so, yeah, I love doing a little dance break for my breaks. So yeah, take your breaks and make them tech free. That was the synopsis for that one. Number 5, eat well and hydrate. I'm hammering this one home because we talked about it earlier, right? When you wake up, make sure you eat a good breakfast, but make sure you're doing this throughout the day. Okay, again, when we're tired, when we feel like hot garbage, we can tend to neglect our other needs. And it's because, again, I'm not a neurologist, but if you look up the studies, when you don't sleep well, your prefrontal cortex is not fully on board, it's not fully online, and you struggle to make decisions. You struggle with decision fatigue more, you struggle with planning, you struggle with choices, all of those things. So that's why when we wake up and we don't feel good, we tend to forget to eat and things like that. Or maybe we eat too much and we eat too much of the wrong thing, things that give us temporary energy, like a lot of sugar or a lot of salt, and then cause us to feel like crap after, either with a sugar crash or a lot of bloating. So I try to remember, again, Mia, you need 5 types of basic self-care: eating, sleep, eating well, hydration, hygiene, and movement. If you didn't sleep well, we're going to double down on all the other ones. So I'm trying to make sure. I still struggle to snack throughout the day. But when I make sure that I'm having fruit, so that has fiber and like fructose in it, right? Sugars that make me feel good. When I'm having nuts, when I'm having some cookies and biscuits, because I need carbs. Carbs give energy. Carbs are not evil. I'm not a nutritionist, but I don't believe carbs are evil. I like to have a variety of things. I always like to have a fruit. I always like to have some nuts, and I like to have a cookie or some biscuits or something like that with some chocolate chips in it. Always got to have some chocolate chips in there, because your brain is a machine and it needs fuel to function. And if we are depriving it of the proper, fuel, it's not going to function. And again, when I wake up and I feel like hot garbage, I think, it's really easy for me to want to be mad at my brain. It's really easy for me to be like, I hate my brain. I hate that I can't sleep well. I hate PTSD. I hate this about myself. But instead, I try to be fully into compassion. It's not my fault that I have this, and I'm going to take really good care of myself today. My body is asking me for all the love and care right now. And so one of the ways I do that is making sure that I'm snacking, that I'm eating throughout the day, and that I'm drinking my water and keeping hydrated so that my brain has the best possible chance of functioning. And then the last tip I want to share is do your best to go to bed early. One of the things that happens when I am having weeks or even months of feeling like this, feeling crappy, is my days are not very productive. They're not as productive as healthy, sleeping well Mia is, right? Okay, so it's easy to compare. It's so easy to compare myself to when I'm sleeping well and what my days look like when I'm sleeping well. And maybe you do that too. And when that happens, I don't know if this is you, let me know. But for me, if I'm feeling disappointed about the day, I end up scrolling on my phone on social media after my kids go to bed and just feeling bad, feeling guilty that my day didn't go the way that I wish it would, the way that my ideal day would have gone. And I think we get so hung up on this idea that all of our days need to be ideal that we forget to just love the person right in front of us, the person that showed up that day, why can't we just honor the fact that we actually still showed up and made it through? And so what ends up happening if I don't honor that and respect that is I don't want to think about it. And so I numb and I'm on my phone for way too long, watching a bunch of videos that exhaust me and cause me to compare. And then I end up going to bed super late. And all that does is exacerbate the exhaustion and fatigue that I'm in and keeps me in that chronic cycle. Granted, you could go to bed super early and still have nightmares. There have been times I've gone to bed early and still had terrible sleep. But the days that I go to bed, with 8 hours of sleep and still have nightmares, I still feel just a tiny bit better than the days that I go to bed with 6 hours of sleep and nightmares. So it's really important that you go to bed as early as you can. Still have some time for yourself, still have time to wind down, but do not punish yourself by scrolling on social media because you're trying to avoid the feeling of disappointment about how your day went. You shouldn't be disappointed in how your day went. You should recognize that you did the best that you could. And sometimes when I'm really spinning out about how something I did at work could have been better, I'll get out my journal and I will genuinely write down everything that I feel proud of myself for doing, from making sure I ate a snack at 2:00 to making sure that I took a shower to making sure that I stepped outside a couple times and stretched. All the little things, I write them down. I write them down as gratitude to myself for how I showed up for myself despite being as tired I was feeling. I write down affirmations that, I am worthy of love and care, and that I don't deserve all of this chronic fatigue and pain that I live with. And I just recognize and try to feel proud that I did my best. When you end the day with that feeling of pride and contentment, it's much easier to choose to turn off the phone and to go to bed, because you see it as an act of love and care, and as like this intention of, things didn't go the greatest, but we still deserve to be treated well. And so we're going to make this choice that's better for our health. So those are my 6 tips for how to show up for your day when you feel like shit. And I hope that they helped you. And I hope that they make you feel less alone. I know that sometimes I look at other people and I'm like, how are they doing everything that they're doing? Social media is not real and we're all doing the best that we can. And oftentimes I'm very, very tired. And it's why a lot of times when you see me posting on social, I'm like lying on my couch, because that's what I'm doing. If I'm not like sitting up and working or having dinner with my kids, I'm lying on my couch. So you're not alone if you're a low energy girly, if you're a low energy lady. You're not alone, and you still deserve love and care. Like the amount of love and care that you give yourself should not be fully dependent on how much you get done in a day. Like the love and care you give to yourself should be consistent regardless of what you get done in a day. So thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. I hope you will consider joining the weekly check-in. I would love to see you and support you week by week, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye.